Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 4 of the anime series Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu Descending Stories. And this was such a beautiful episode. It really legitimately warmed my heart, left me crying by the end. And that is all because of the love, support, and compassion of Yotaro for Konatsu. Much as I speculated, there was a bit of a time skip. Their son Shin is now attending kindergarten. And he's somewhat of a savant when it comes to the Rakugo. He has completely memorized and learned an entire Rakugo piece that he's performing for his parents and their friends in this episode, and everyone is just brain-bustingly astounded at the natural, prowess this kid has at doing this. And until the Yakumo comes in and kind of stirs the pot a little bit, blames Konatsu for bringing her child, not knowing that he kind of snuck in, he wormed his way in, because everyone loves him. He's an adorable kid, and he is. He's a genuinely adorable kid. He's very likable, very charismatic, and he's getting free food and everything left and right. And it's brilliant. But I love that he takes the blame. He goes to the Yakumo and says, Grandpa, I actually snuck in. It wasn't Mommy's fault and everything. And I just, my heart melted when Yakumo embraced him and said, that's good. That's showing your manners. Always do that, And I just loved it. But I love how Yotaro is very much pushing Konatsu to broaden the horizon, kind of going back to the encapsulation of her dreams of old. Something she's very much given up on and kind of is now extending through her son being alive. She wants the Rakugo to be something probably he pursues and will be very proud of him, not as a pushy parent by any stretch of the imagination, but, it's something that he is naturally adept at. It's a world in which he's growing up, so it would be something very natural to him, and it would be an extension of going back to Sukeroku, her father, and all those things that she has come to love and appreciate in the Yakumo, in Yotaro, Sukeroku, the modern Sukeroku, and all those things, and her dreams will be fulfilled and realized through her child, in a manner of speaking. But that's not good enough for Yotaro, and I really feel for what he's trying to do. We find out that she's been learning the shamisen to play whenever he's going to be performing and everything like that. She's like, I thought she was absolutely pissed that she was having to do this, like relegated to maybe what you could say, air quotes, is a lesser form than the Rakugo performer, that aspect of the performance in having to learn the shamisen. But she's actually just really struggling with the concentration, really focusing on it, and it's taking her all. It's taking her every, bit of concentration to do that. But we find that basically Shin's kindergarten class has been absolutely loving this televised performance of Yotaro as the Sukeroku on what I think is a children's program, and they've been watching it and watching it and watching it. It's their favorite thing. And I think it was, I don't remember what the performance was in the video per se, whether it was Jugumu, the one that is Shin's favorite, and he's singing it all through the episode. They're singing it many times all through the episode, this Jugumu piece, and I was not quite sure what the punchline was meant to be, so I'm really happy that they ended up performing it in its entirety, but I'm even that much happier that Yotaro went out on stage at this kindergarten event, that they were very happy to have him, extend an invitation for him to come in and perform to these kids who just love his Rakugo performance that was televised. And they love all of that. They get a kick out of it, everything like that. And it's also speaking to Yotaro's successes, if you will. I mean, he's been performing to packed house after packed house, as well as the Yakumo. It just really is awesome that they've been performing together and that they have been bringing in an audience so many years later that this all began, But I love how Yotaro throws a wrench into the works, and rather than doing what everyone expects, doing this piece that their son really enjoys and absolutely loves, is elated, that he might perform it for his entire class. And they're calling him out saying, oh, it's Shin's daddy and everything like that. I just loved it. I love how Yotaro, he goes off stage after he gets all of the kids to recite this song, Jugumu, and after he's sure that there can be audience participation. He's like, hold up, hold up, hold up. And he leaves the stage, and this is where he confronts Konatsu with, look, go on stage, perform a rakugo, at least do it once in your life. See what it feels like. And she's scared out of her mind, but she goes. She drops the shamisen and she goes on stage, and it takes her a couple of seconds to gain her bearings, looking at all the children. But it's her one final opportunity to really have that realized, to really come full circle for her, something she wanted ever since being a little girl, you know, growing up with her dad and having her dad recite these rakugo. And so when she starts the performance, I was just ear to ear grinning. I'm sure I was blushing. I was so enamored and happy with her actually performing this. I was afraid she was going to bow out at the last second. And just as, you know, Yotaro had tested, he tested the water, she got the kids involved. You know, a key point when they have to rifle off this long, insane name. That's what the punchline is. That this guy wants to come up with a name for his kids, something that would be bountiful and beneficial, something that, you know, inspires a lifelong, prosperous future. And he ends up not being able to decide between one of like 24 different names, and so he chose them all. Starts with the word Jugumo, the name Jugumo. You know, so like basically somebody comes in and says, "Oh, did you know that Jugumo blah 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 hit me on the head?" And then they're like, "Oh my God, what Jugumo blah 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 blah, you know, hit this guy on the head, but I don't see a wound." But well, you know, it went down in the time it took you to say your son's name or whatever it is. And at that key point, she gets the kids all to start saying that name and singing that name. And when they finally reach the culmination, she just blushes. Her face turns beet red. So satisfyingly, so in awe of the majesty of that moment. And the tears were flowing at that point for me already. And of course, she finishes out the performance and goes backstage and just is flush with the adrenaline and the fear and the excitement and the awe and the wonder. And she collapses almost into the arms of Yotaro. And I just started bawling. It was like, oh man, I think I even said, oh my God, like out loud at that moment. I'm even getting misty-eyed now thinking about it. Because this is something she has wanted all her life. She's wanted to be able to feel what that felt like and recapture that estimation she had of her own father and of Yotaro as the, you know, now comes Sukeroku himself and the Yakumo and all this stuff. I mean, this is a lifelong dream come true for her. And it just absolutely was majestic and beautiful. And I loved it. I loved it so much. You know, if you could somehow take an episode of an anime, frame it, and put it up on the wall, I would want this one framed on my wall. Because it was an absolute artistic masterpiece, and it tugged at my heartstrings, and just, it was overall just absolutely beautiful. You know, oh man, this show is wondrous, and this was such a wondrous episode. And it was interesting also seeing Higuchi really trying to get involved with, you know, the Yakumo again, and taking his picture inadvertently without permission, as the Yakumo says. You know, he's trying to get advice, seemingly, in his wanting to do that reinvention of the Rakugo thing. He's written some pieces, and he wants to try to figure out, because he's trying to find that balance of, you know, honoring the old, but also doing something new, you know, bringing it to the audience where the audience is failing to come out to see it, which is in contrast to what we're seeing with, you know, Yotaro as Sukeroku bringing an audience in and having success. Yakumo still very much feels like whatever Rakugo had once been, it will die with me. And Higuchi seems to be very much about the idea of, no, this craft, this artistry is not for you and you alone. It was around generations before you, and it can live on. There can be a longevity much beyond your years once you finally wither away and die. You know, And it seems like he, the Yakumo is very sort of bitter about that aspect. It's almost as though he wants it to die with him. And he's really going through some tumultuous internal misgivings about, the Sukeroku of old, and now Yotaro being Sukeroku and being so successful, and all these things. And I really have to wonder, there was this great sweet moment of Kanatsu coming home after, spending some time with Yotaro, and they were out and doing whatever, working, whatever. And, of course, Shin wakes up and says, welcome home. And she's like, go back to bed. And then she lays next to him and everything. And it's just so sweet. But it did make me wonder, because then we see Yakumo holding the fan with the name Sukeroku written on it, whether or not he knew that she performed. And I kind of feel like it would be a pretty abrasive, explosive reaction had he figured that out. But he did seem to be mulling something over. So I don't know if it was his conversation with Higuchi that was the point of his, internal sort of reserve, or if it was that performance that Kanatsu had put on, if he had found out about it or not. And it was just interesting to see Yakumo tearing up Higuchi's scripting and being like, I have nothing for you. But it did also kind of bewilder me for a split second, because there's a point when Higuchi says, if the audience isn't coming to you, you have to bring Rakugo to the audience in some new fashion, reinvent the wheel. And the way he said it, I'm almost sure Sukeroku of old had said that to him when he was still Kikuhiko, when they were still competitive in the Rakugo form with the former Yakumo. And he went wide-eyed. The Yakumo went wide-eyed in the car on their ride home when he said it that way. And so I think that's really what put the seed in his mind, to really be mulling this over, to be thinking about all of this, whether or not there will be some give to his reluctance to, think Rakugo can live on beyond him, remains to be seen. But it'll be interesting to see what directive that takes as the series continues. And again, this episode, just absolutely heartwarming and beautiful, brought tears to my eyes, tears of joy to my eyes. And again, if I could frame it on my wall, I'd frame this entire episode. Because it just made me smile and made me teary-eyed, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely the peak of the awesomeness that this series is capable of. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've seen Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu episode 4 as well. If you loved it as much as I did, we're heartwarmed and smiling, left smiling, and maybe even crying like I was. If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below. Although I'd be highly surprised if anyone out there who is beloved of this series and watching this series would not have felt that emotion and felt that happiness and that joy and all that kind of stuff that this episode really just put forth. So yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.